This is the Jaecoo J7 plug-in hybrid electric vehicle, and I'm about to do a round trip to the Kruger Park and back to Joburg on one tank of fuel. The Jaecoo J7 has multiple modes for protecting the battery state of charge and deploying it for only when you need it. So I'm going to be trying to figure this out along the way. I've got the tank full. There's 1,100 kilometers of fuel range in the vehicle and about 91 kilometers of electric vehicle range with the battery at 99%. So I'm fully topped up, and let's take this out onto the road and see if we can actually do this. Driving now for about 40 minutes on the trip to the Idube Game Lodge in Sabi Sands in Kruger Park. But some interesting data already to show. We started at a state of charge of around 98% this morning, and even in the first 55 kilometers I'm now down to 42% state of charge. So that's me driving in pure HEV mode. We have an average fuel efficiency of 0.1 liters per 100 kilometers and an average energy combined figure of 5.6 liters per 100 kilometers. The remaining petrol range is still at 1,099 kilometers, so the battery has been doing all the heavy lifting up until now on the trip. So this is the decision you need to make. When do you deploy your electric power, or do you just let the electric power get used up in the first 100 kilometers or so of range? You can see here under New Energy, you can choose which mode to use. So right now I've just been using a default mode, which allows me to drive in pure HEV mode and let the battery work. But if I went into forced mode and I said to the vehicle, do not use less than say 50% of the battery, what that's going to force the battery to do is to be protected. And now I'm going to be running in pure petrol mode. Now, why would you want to protect the battery? The battery can be used specifically when you're going up a hill to get even better fuel efficiency. So right now I'm going to keep 50% of the battery, or at least it's sitting at 40%, so it won't go below 40%. And I'm now tapping directly into the petrol tank. This is plug-in hybrid life. It's about deciding whether you want to forget about all these settings and just let the car drive yourself, or if you'd like to, you can get better control of your own fuel efficiency by controlling settings like that. As you saw me do just now, I set the battery forced mode at 50%. So I want to keep the battery at 50%. What's actually happening now, if you look at this figure, is that the battery is actually charging itself up. So I was on 41% and now it's at 44% and probably going to go to 45% very soon as well. And this is the petrol tank. This is the super hybrid system actually working in the Jaecoo. The internal combustion engine is actually acting as a generator, and it's charging the battery from the fuel. So it's going to continue to charge up to 50% or whatever setting that I actually put it on, and I can use the petrol and the battery interchangeably in that way. Okay, currently here at the Millys Petroport stop at the Rubicon 75 kilowatt DC charger. I've got the Jaecoo J7 plugged in there. It's charging at a maximum DC charge speed of 40 kilowatts, which is really decent for a plug-in hybrid. In fact, this is one of the few plug-in hybrids that actually supports DC charging. And it makes so much sense to have DC charging on a plug-in hybrid, because when you do have 20-25 minutes to stop at a place like this on a road trip, you really want to get that full charge back into the vehicle. Another interesting aspect of the Jaecoo is that it's got what's called a super hybrid system, or SHS, which means it can use the battery in series mode or parallel mode. In parallel mode, the battery is working with the ICE engine to get the most efficient use or the most efficient work rate out of the ICE engine. In series mode, the petrol engine or the ICE engine is actually charging the battery. It's about finding the balance between the two, and that's why there's this intelligence smart system that pops up every now and then, asking you whether you really want to use the smart mode or whether you are in control of what you're doing. If you just want to sit back and drive the vehicle, use the smart mode, and it flips intelligently between the series and parallel modes of driving. I'm wrapping up the charge session now. I added in about just over 14 kilowatt hours in about 20 minutes, went from 17% up to about 85%. So exactly the amount of time needed to have a rest stop here at a place like this. That's going to give me another 90 k's or so of additional range. And our next leg is to go from Millys through to Mbombela. I was just checking the Charge Pocket app, and I found that the DC charger at Riverside Mall is actually offline. So we can't stop there. I was intending to stop there. But we're going to go through Schoemanskloof, which is a lot of descent. So what I'm going to hope to do is drive that section in EV mode as much as possible and keep the battery as charged as possible as we go downhill. So this is going to be an interesting next section, and I'll give you an update on the road. Connected to an AC charger at the capital in Mbombela. This is now about 100 k's coming out of Millys. And the amazing thing was that because Schoemanskloof was mostly downhill, I was able to keep the J7 in EV mode for about 99% of the time. And I've only had to use about 5 kilometers of the petrol range to do the 100 kilometers of actual distance. So effectively, that trip from Millys to Mbombela, I had a net fuel efficiency of 0.3 liters per 100 kilometers. So barely even touched the petrol tank. I've net gained 100 kilometers additional range simply by using the EV charge that I gained from Millys getting into Mbombela. The next stretch to get to Idube Game Lodge in Sabi Sands from Mbombela is about 122 kilometers away and around 2 hours and 15 minutes of driving expected. So I'm not going to have a full charge when I leave here. This is probably going to be at about 20%. Let's see how the elevation is up and down, and maybe I can gain some kilometers back that way. But I don't expect to get huge gains out of this segment of the trip. So, see you on the road. We are now about 400 meters away from the entrance to Idube Game Lodge here in Sabi Sands, southern part of Kruger National Park. We have done 448 kilometers to get here. My consumption for the past 50 kilometers, average fuel economy, has been around 4.2 liters per 100 k's. And that's really because I've had a low battery state of charge towards the end of the trip, and the petrol has had to do most of the work in terms of keeping the battery at around 25 to 30%, using as much as possible the parallel system of the battery and the ICE engine working together. So here we go, arriving at the lodge, and we'll check in again. Here we are at the Idube Game Reserve in Sabi Sands Reserve, an absolutely stunning resort, a bit of a hidden gem in South Africa. And I'm joined here now by Evert Hanekom, who's the lodge manager for Idube.
G'day, my name is Evert Hanekom. I manage the lodge with my wife, and I've been at this lodge now for the last 5 years. My wife's been here a bit longer, 12 years now. Best place to be, no regrets.
Fantastic. Evert is going to take us on a bit of a tour around the lodge, and we're going to go on a drive to go and see a watering hole, and then come back and look at the solar installation, and ultimately we're going to plug in this Jaecoo J7 plug-in hybrid directly into the solar. Well, thanks so much for having me, and should we hit the road?
Yeah, let's go.
Do that.
First started off as a tented camp. walking safaris, and then eventually carried on with the lodge where it is situated now, especially with the beautiful rocks around it. And then just slowly started building more and more onto the lodge. And then quite recently we did a complete revamp of the lodge as well, just to bring it more into standards with the rest of the competition as well.
And how many camps, how many lodges in this area?
Well, in the western side is about 6 properties, a few more lodges, because some of the properties got more than one lodge on itself. But then in the western area, the nice thing is we all work together. We help each other so we can traverse on each other's property. It helps it easy to find animals. We all help each other with that. So it's a big family that's been brought up basically over the years in the western sector of the Sabi Sands. With that as well, being open, you've got no control of where the animals are going to be and where they're going to move around. So that's where sometimes the skills of the trackers and rangers must come in to find some of the animals.
Right.
Some drives you'll see everything around the corners, and other days you'll have to go and look for them a bit harder. They do eventually go where they want. But we do have a quite high density of leopards in the area, which makes it a bit easier. Lions do roam around a bit more, and elephants, well, you've seen how they move around.
Yes. They were quite close to the camp this morning, actually.
Yeah, I know they love coming around the camp. Because the camp's always greener first than the rest of the property. Because of the watering holes and not being too far from the lodge, they will always move around. They're very curious animals. We've got about 39 now staff. We all stay on site. If there is any hassle or anything like that, it's just a lot easier getting hold of anyone and we'll get the work job done basically. So we all become as a close family. It's a different lifestyle, to say.
Absolutely.
Not just a job, but a lifestyle.
Yeah.
And we've got some hippos at Scotia Dam.
Look at that. So that dam we've just been to, Evert, is that a self-made dam?
Yeah, so Louis actually, he was one of the designers of creating that dam as well on the property. One of 3 dams that is situated on the site. So it's naturally filled with rain every year of the seasons. And one of the things of being in the lodge industry and everything, we have to maintain and make sure that everything stays proper and hold up as well. So roadworks, if there's a problem with the dam, basically anything situated on the property is the lodge's responsibility at the end of the day.
So in terms of visitors around the world coming to Idube, maybe after COVID, what's it been like?
We actually had a big broad variety of guests, Americans, UK, Asian, Australian. We get basically guests from everywhere. Sometimes a bit more from one area than the other, but it does change and differ a lot. You can stay at one place and you can meet all the different cultures at one spot, and you get to meet a lot of interesting and nice people as well.
Absolutely.
But the lodge, we try to keep it as a family oriented lodge, a family experience.
Yes.
If you come and stay here, we want you to come back, because it's not just of the lodge itself, but the people and the experience together. We want them to feel at home as possible. So that's one of the key things that the owners would love about the lodge, and what they always want the lodge to show as well.
Right. Evert, in the 4 or 5 years you've been here, what are some of the highlights you've seen in and around camp?
Difficult one, but well, the thing is, because you stay in a wild reserve, wild animals around each corner basically, you can't control always where they go, and unfortunately sometimes they do come a bit closer into camp. So I think one of the experiences is walking into a pride of lions, where they were sitting around the corner. But luckily we don't encourage animals coming into camp. It keeps guests a bit safer and keep the animals a bit more wilder as well. The same as where we've seen leopards making a kill in camp as well on foot.
Wow.
Experience to have, but it's something that we also don't always encourage, and we try and keep them out of the camp as well as much as possible.
So Evert, we're standing under some amazing solar panels that you've had installed here at the lodge. Tell us a little bit about why you decided to go for solar at the lodge. What are the benefits you're seeing, and maybe what's the sizing of this installation?
One of the main reasons is Eskom got very unreliable, and being in a lodge running out of power and everything, especially with guests paying to stay here, it's not always a fun thing. Second, we're also to cut a bit cost on energy and go more greener as well, which is a lot of lodges are trying to do as well, which is a good thing. Well, at this stage, we actually, with the whole revamp, we got about 369 panels. Each panel is about 530 watts. So most of the day will run from the panels, and batteries will charge, and then it will last us basically throughout the night on a good sunny day.
And on any given sunny day, is the lodge running completely off the solar installation?
Yeah, no, so every day during the day, it's basically running just on solar panels, which is quite nice. You see the difference on the bill.
And I think it makes a big difference for the type of customers and clients that come here to know that this is a off-grid, sustainable energy run lodge.
Everyone is going more greener in the world. It's a good thing towards advertising and making guests feel better as well when they come and stay. It's a good step to take, and it's something that we always try and go ahead with and try and stay as green as possible in the lodge industry.
And lastly, the vehicles behind us here are obviously not green vehicles yet, although they are green in color. Tell us a little bit about the opportunities for electric game drive vehicles and some of the pros and cons when it comes to the animals specifically.
Electric vehicles, it is something that is actually slowly building into the industry. What we have noticed before is if you get an electrical vehicle, it takes now time for the animals to get used to that vehicle again, because it's a lot more quieter. So if the animal is busy feeding on something or busy stalking, it gets spooked suddenly with a vehicle right behind it, as well as the high-pitched noise sometimes. But with time and everything, they get used to it as well, and you get normal game viewing. So it is something that's growing in the industry. I believe there's still a bit more few tweaks and everything that they have to sort out, but it's growing definitely.
That's good to hear. Well, let's go take a look at the battery room. I'm keen to see that storage, and then we'll connect up the vehicle. Okay.
So let's get charged. Each battery is 100 kilowatts. We've got 5 of them here. So we run about 500 kilowatts for overnight. We've got the screen set up there that shows you where our power is running. So it's actually on 73, so it's still filling up. You can see we're running off solar panels, so it's quite an effective system. Even if the clouds aren't as hot and a bit cloudy, it's still basically charged to about 100% by the end of the day. This one will probably be full in the next 2 hours. So we've got a central boiling system as well on the other side of the room. With the extraction setup we've got here, it helps with the watering system. So we try and recycle and reuse as much as possible in every area that we go into with the whole new revamp.
So currently I have the Jaecoo J7 plugged into a plug point inside the battery storage room here at Idube Game Reserve. The charger that I'm using is very much a slow charger, so I'm only getting around 2.1 kilowatts, and the remaining time is to say another 6 hours or so for me to reach 100%. Right now I'm sitting at around 31%, so I can leave the car charging here while we go out for the day. This is also really cool because it's coming directly off the solar panel production. No grid is being used at the moment, and I'm getting completely clean energy here into my electric vehicle here at Idube Game Reserve. So this is perhaps the first step for the lodge to allow EVs now to charge at the lodge using slow chargers. Perhaps in future what we might see is the installation of an AC charger here at the lodge, not only to service customers that might come in EVs, but hopefully in future also electric game drive vehicles. Let's see. The internal combustion engine produces 105 kilowatts of power and 215 Newton meters of torque, while the electric motor produces 150 kilowatts of power with 310 Newton meters of torque. Combined, the whole system is able to produce 255 kilowatts of power and 525 Newton meters of torque. Let's talk about the battery capacity and the new energy vehicle capabilities of the J7. It has an 18.3 kilowatt hour LFP battery, which is able to produce around 90 kilometers of electric only driving. Combined with the 60-litre petrol tank though, this vehicle is capable of doing in excess of 1,200 kilometers on a single tank. To achieve that kind of mileage, you need to have a fuel efficiency of around 1 litre per 100 kilometers. But actually, real world combined, Jaecoo claims around 4.7 litres per 100 kilometers when using the battery in parallel mode as well. The J7 can charge at 6.6 kilowatts of AC and up to 40 kilowatts DC speeds. Having a DC charger available on a plug-in hybrid electric vehicle is an incredibly useful feature, especially when doing a road trip. You might think that you won't need to charge on a road trip using a plug-in hybrid, but when you do stop for 20 or 30 minutes on a long trip, it absolutely makes sense to plug in your plug-in hybrid into a DC charger and get as near as to full in terms of the battery capacity. One of the optimal ways to drive a plug-in hybrid on a road trip is to try and protect your battery state of charge for when you're going up hills. When you're going down hills, you put it into EV mode anyway, and you will reclaim as much as you can of the kinetic energy into electrical energy. But it's when you reach up hills, if you can have enough battery capacity available to flick into electric mode, and you use electric mode to go up a hill, you can actually watch your fuel consumption come down as you're climbing a hill. And that aids tremendously to your overall fuel consumption. As you've come to expect from brands like Jaecoo and Omoda out of the Cherry family, you can expect multiple luxuries and technology within the cabin itself. There's a 14.8-inch screen for the user interface infotainment system and a 10.25-inch driver cluster display. It has wireless charging, wireless Apple CarPlay, wireless Android Auto, panoramic sunroof, adjustable seats, and plenty of room in the back seats for rear passengers as well. Ultimately, a really competitive package. About to depart in an hour's time, being able to charge at the lodge here yesterday. I had the vehicle plugged in using a slow charger, averaging around 1.9 to 2 kilowatts for about 6.5 hours, and I went up to 100% of charge. So thank you to Idube Lodge for allowing me to charge here. That's given me a net gain of around about 88 to 90 kilometers of pure EV driving, which will be a significant assist as we make our way down here from Idube all the way through back down to Mbombela, where we'll do our next charging stop. In terms of actual distance driven so far, so it was 453 kilometers to get here from Midrand. On the reverse trip now, I'm going to hopefully stop at Ilanga Mall or perhaps Riverside Mall in Mbombela to do another DC charge for about 20 minutes to give me as much EV range back to use going up that ascent. And if you recall, when we started the trip, I had a remaining range of 1,101 kilometers when we started. At the moment, I've got 805 kilometers remaining range in the plug-in hybrid, which means there's a net usage there of 296 kilometers. But actually, the real world distance that we drove was 453 kilometers. So I've actually made a net gain of around about 157 kilometers purely from being able to use the battery as part of the trip. So going back to Midrand now is going to be a bit more climbing than coming down here, but we'll see how I can use the EV mode effectively to make the most out of the plug-in hybrids features. I'll give you the next update on the road. Bye for now. Just arrived here now in Mbombela, and we're going to stop at the Ilanga Mall just to do a DC charge top-up for about 20 minutes. After leaving Idube, I now have 7 kilometers of range left after starting with 88 kilometers of range. So I've really used up pretty much all the EV range available that I got from the initial charge at Idube Lodge. And that's given me a great gain in terms of the actual range left on the petrol tank, because my remaining range now in petrol is around 745 kilometers. And when I started, it was 805 kilometers. So that's basically another 60 kilometers that I've actually used of effective range. But my actual distance has been more like about 105 kilometers. So you can just see a net gain that I've achieved by using the battery instead of using the petrol in the plug-in hybrid. Okay, I've got the Jaecoo J7 plug-in hybrid connected now to a charger at Ilanga Mall in Mbombela. We're just stopping here for 15 minutes to grab a coffee. It's going to give me around about 40 to 50 kilometers of range. It's a 60 kilowatt DC charger, and I'm getting the full 40 kilowatts directly into the vehicle, which is great. So using the time again, just to add that electric range, we're actually going to take now, instead of going over Schoolmanskloof, we're actually going to go past or go through Ingondwada. That's about an hour and 20 minutes, about 102 kilometers. So this extra EV range is going to really help on the way to the next stop, which will just be at Millys for a short while as well. Charging going well, and I'll give you an update on the road. This is the final charging stop here at Millys on the N4. Just another 15-20 minute stop. Put in the DC charger, and I'm going to be loading in about 10 kilowatt hours of energy. Again, getting up to about 90% state of charge. That's the extra 80-90 kilometers needed for the final stretch. From here back to Midrand, basically 230 Ks, roughly 2.5 hours. Pretty much flattish kind of road, so only hybrid electric mode needed. Don't think I'll ever need to use EV on its own, but certainly having the charged battery is definitely going to help with the consumption. So see you on the road. Okay, we're coming now into Midrand. We're coming through Pretoria now, and I've got around 20 kilometers left to go, and I've got 24 kilometers left in terms of range in EV mode. And I'm going to move this from EV to EV Plus. And no, I'm not going to think a little bit longer. I'm going to confirm that I want to do this right now. Effectively now I'm using EV mode exclusively, and I've got 23 kilometers of range left, and I've got 19 kilometers to go. So final stretch, I've done 879 kilometers, and I've got 358 kilometers left in range. And hopefully I can lock that range in and not have to use it for the final stretch, but I'll check when I get inside there. Okay, I've just finished the final stretch of the road trip from Millys to Midrand. Did that in around just over 2.5 hours, no dramas. And overall, around an 897 kilometer round trip there and back. And I have 348 kilometers remaining. So that gives me an overall range of around 1,245 kilometers in this 60-litre petrol tank inside the Jaecoo J7 plug-in hybrid. So it just shows you what you can get in terms of range, and of course the additional range that is possible when you charge the vehicle and use the plug-in hybrid capabilities to the maximum. So I'm going to go now and do a final summary and wrap up the numbers, and let's see where we end up. So let's wrap up the final numbers of the round trip from Johannesburg to Idube Game Lodge and back again. The total trip distance, 897 kilometers, and I still had 348 kilometers remaining on the vehicle, which gives me a total achievable range of 1,245 kilometers on the 60-litre fuel tank in this vehicle. If I now take that as the achievable range, the efficiency that gives me is 4.8 litres per 100 kilometers. Now let's work out the exact number of litres used with that efficiency, 4.8 litres per 100 kilometers, 897 kilometers driven. means that I used 43 liters of fuel for the trip there and back. Now let's work out the fuel cost. 43 liters at the prevailing petrol price comes to a cost of 913 Rand. So that's the fuel costs of the trip. Let's work out the charging costs. The first charging stop at Millys, on the way there, I put in 14 kilowatt hours of energy. I was able to charge for free at Idube Lodge, so no cost for charging on that charge session. I also stopped on the way back at Ilanga Mall and put in another 7 kilowatt hours at that point. And then I stopped again at Millys and put in another 10 kilowatt hours. So roughly speaking, the total energy added was 31.7 kilowatt hours, multiplied by 7 Rand per kilowatt hour, roughly, give or take between grid cars and Rubicon, and the total charging costs 221 Rand. So let's add 221 Rand of charging costs to the petrol costs of 913 Rand, and the total cost now for petrol and charging together is 1,134 Rand. So to get to the final figure in terms of a cost per kilometer, 1,134 Rand divided by 897 kilometers gives me a total cost per kilometer of 1 Rand 28. So now the real question is, was it really worth it to stop and charge a plug-in hybrid on a long road trip? Do we get a net gain? If you don't get any additional gain in time, is there any additional gain in cost? Well, the answer for me is clear. If I hadn't have used charging and I had not used the battery as much as I did, the fuel consumption would have gone up from 4.8 liters to 7 liters per 100 kilometers. Now, assuming I just used 7 liters per 100 kilometers for that 897 kilometer road trip, the fuel costs would have gone up to 1,330 Rand. And that equates to a cost per kilometer of 1 Rand 48 per kilometer. So there's actually a net saving of nearly 200 Rand, even with charging costs included, to make sure that you actually stop and charge this vehicle along the way. So if you're up for the game and you really want to get the savings, it's certainly worth it over a long-term road trip, particularly a trip perhaps down to Cape Town or a similar sort of distance. So I would highly recommend that you do consider leveraging the best of this new energy vehicle technology for cost savings, particularly if you're going to be using that time anyway for refreshments or a body break or breakfast or lunch. You definitely have the ability to do it. And what's really, really impressive about the Jaecoo J7 is that it comes with a DC charger. And DC charging at 40 kilowatts allows you to really replenish that full available capacity, that 18 kilowatt hours in that 20 to 25 minutes that you might stop along the way. That makes a huge difference for road trips. So that wraps up my road trip test with the Jaecoo J7 plug-in hybrid or super hybrid system. I think overall an extremely capable vehicle and chock-a-block full of technology with all the controls that you need to get the most efficiency out of both a fuel tank and a new energy vehicle in terms of battery electric architecture. Highly recommend having a look at this, and for a practical vehicle for road trips, it's an absolutely excellent performer. If you've made it this far in the video, thanks for watching, but I really would like to invite you to stick around to see some unbelievable footage of some of the animals and the wildlife that we were able to see at Idube Game Reserve in Sabi Sands. We saw the big five, we saw close-up lion kills, we saw close-ups of leopards, and I'm going to put that into a little segment after this for you to enjoy. Hopefully you do, and if you did, please like, please subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.
Two different ones, the male and the female. So the male is the one behind, the female is on the front. You can see with the bars on the forehead. for what? Oh, it's a male and female, they're in a honeymoon. Probably it might be that. Find a room.